Interestingly enough, we see you all standing in a line, like a queue, waiting for something. Let's see what you think you're waiting for. It's kind of hilarious. We don't ever seem to think you guys are very patient. So the idea that you'd all be queued up is pretty hilarious to us. Why are you showing us that picture? Just a moment. We'll tease it out. You've been trained to be very good humans. You've been trained to be very good humans. You may be impatient, and you may be adrenaline junkies, and you may be overachievers, and all those things we like to tease you about. But the truth is you've been trained to be very good humans. And one of the ways you've been trained to be good humans is to believe that you're a limited being. So there you are in line, and somehow it's like going to see the Wizard of Oz or something. You're queued up, waiting for it to be your turn. For your turn to experience the breadth of you, the depth of you, the possibilities of you. This is shockingly amusing to us because, again, we don't experience you as extremely patient, and so the amusing thing is that this is a place where habit is holding you. Habit has told you, in so many ways, habit's told you lies about yourself. And as you grow and change and become more, the lies just get bigger and bigger. But there's something about this idea of it will happen someday, or someday I will be more than I am, or someday I'll finally be evolved, someday I'll experience ascension, someday 2012 will get here, someday, 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 someday. We hear you chanting it, someday, and it's today.
Yes.
So let's see if we can get that energetic out of your collective fields, because it's crap. There's no such thing as someday. It's the way your mind has controlled you by saying someday it will be different, so in the meantime it's okay however it is now. It's sort of like, I'll get there someday, so it's okay to habituate another day. Because it's not someday yet. This is why sometimes when people have a terminal diagnosis, they get off the pot, as the saying goes, and they start to set things right in their lives. They start to enact change. They start to make the difference they wanted always to make in their life. Well, we don't need terminal diagnoses in a conscious environment. That's not required. We no longer play that game because it's really interesting that people can make a lot of change sometimes when they're ill, but then you're making change out of illness. And so you're not actually enjoying the transformation. You're just doing it out of fear. So let's not play it that way. Today is the someday you've been waiting for. So how do we get you out of that line? You know, this is a very, very deep form of habit. And it's the habit of belief in time. Tough one to break, we know. But it's also the habit in the belief that you're never quite as much as you thought you might one day be. Like you're never quite there. You understand? You're never quite healthy enough. You're never quite smart enough. You're never quite skinny enough. You're never quite spiritual enough. You're never quite psychic enough. So it puts the frontier of actually enjoying yourself and experiencing the fullness of you beyond today all the time. Because there's no acceptance that the completion of you is present in this moment always. And if the completion of you doesn't look skinny or doesn't look fat or doesn't look intelligent or doesn't look spiritual in that moment, it's your non-acceptance of the truth of this moment that keeps you in someday. Because you're always expecting that someday, whatever it is I'm not happy with will be different, and then that day I'll be happy. But because of that, you're constantly staying in I'm not happy. You see, someday can't come if today you're creating from not enough, and whatever not enough looks like. And as you become more and more and more high vibrational, and as you become more and more conscious, your inner world creates your outer world more and more rapidly. Your inner world creates your outer world. This is technically how you create your own reality. Is that your inner world is reflected in your external world. And because for all these years you haven't been conscious of your inner world, you've looked around and thought, why did I create that? Or there's no way I could create that. Well, bullshit. You're creating all of it. And you're creating all of it because that's how it works. Your inner journey, your inner state, your inner world is reflected in your external world. And as you bring awareness to every aspect of your inner world, it has to show up differently in your external world. This is how you create your reality. And when you see something in your external world that you don't like, appreciate, prefer, that's when you look internally to see where it is that you're generating it. That's taking deep responsibility for whatever you're experiencing. Then someday becomes today, because right now is accepted 100% responsibility. I take 100% responsibility for what's happening now. Therefore, someday it'll be different is right now it can start changing. Now, immediate gratification, you might be like, well, it doesn't change immediately. You know, it really does. But you have a lag between the creation and the physicality of it a lot of times, because the physical form is dense. It's the last thing to get it. And there is a bit of a sluggishness sometimes between creation and experience. So it's not that you're not instantaneously manifesting. It's that there is a built-in sluggishness, thank God, or you'd all be dead, because at least once in your life said, I give up, and then koosh, they'd all just fall down dead all the time. So there needs to be that sluggishness. But as you become more conscious and become more 5D and become more of all these things, high vibrational, the sluggishness starts to dissipate and disappear. And as you start arguing with the belief in time and you start having a brand new experience of how time is dealt with, then sluggishness stops being as applicable as well. So you're starting to eat away at the sluggishness between your creation internally and your external experience of it. And when you start to eat away at that sluggishness, you damn well better take some serious responsibility for your internal journey, because if you don't, your world is going to be messy. One of the reasons you've never had instantaneous manifestation is because you didn't have enough discipline about your internal world to have it. The first time you think, he's a jerk, I wish he'd die, and he did, you'd be in serious shit. So you have to have an internal discipline. And it's not so much about, I wish he would die, and he does. It's about, I just don't think I'm there yet. And you're not. Because someday can never arrive if your internal belief is that you're not there now. Now, this doesn't mean that however you are now can't change. We have preferences, remember? We can set boundaries. We have neutral observation. But you have to accept now in order for it to change. You have to accept now in order for now to change. Because if you're not accepting now, you're not getting what this moment is offering. And it just re-cues and comes up again. And a lot of times it comes up immediately because you have so few things left to cue on. It never goes away. Okay, well, did you accept now? I accept that I am judging myself for my physical shape. I accept that I'm judging myself about my my health. I accept that I'm judging myself about my monetary situation. I accept that I'm judging myself about whatever. And say, I created this. I accept my creation and I'm ready to change it. If you don't start with acceptance of the moment, you don't get very far. And that is one of the big problems, quote problems, of being human.